we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, let's take a moment of silence to pray for the souls lost this past weekend. Pray for all the souls lost during this current war. We hear about the main wars taking place today, however, there are so many more conflicts taking place. Let us take a moment of silence for the 45 conflicts taking place in the Middle East, the 35 conflicts in Africa, the 21 in Asia, and the 7 in Europe, and the 6 in Latin America. Let us pray for peace and enlightenment. Pray for peace and enlightenment.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Welcome to the town board meeting of September 5th, 2024. For those who are visiting for the first time, I'd like to introduce the town board and the deputy town clerk. Present here tonight is council member Brandon Fuller. Next we have council members Sandy Leone. In the center is council member Teresa Luongo. On the left is deputy supervisor Tim Finnegan, and to the right is deputy clerk Nicole Young. I'm the town supervisor Pete Luciani, and thank you everybody for attending the town board meeting tonight. Now we'll move on to public hearing for introductory local law number 3 of 2024 Code of Ethics. Nicole, can you please read the public hearing notice?
Public hearing is being held to entertain. I apologize for my voice in advance. A public hearing is being held to entertain public comment on introductory local law 3 of 2024, amending chapter 39, town code entitled Ethics Code of. The public notice was printed in the Times Herald Record on August 29, 2024, and the following comments were received.
Thank you, Nicole. I'll pass the baton over to our legal counsel, Ed.
Good evening, everyone. So as discussed, we're going to introduce the bill. This, is that me? This new code of ethics, as I was instructed by the town to do, to redraft the code of ethics, is based on the code of ethics, the model code of ethics that is published by the New York State Comptroller's Office. It is the most common code adopted across the state by most municipalities. There's some modifications to it to make it local, based in town with Woodbury, whatever else. There are 3 substantive changes that are worth noting. The first is under the model code, gifts, the dollar for gifts is capped at $75, which is tied to a state law which makes it a crime to solicit gifts above that. The current code had a gift cap at $50, and the board wanted to keep that the same, so I reduced the number of the gift dollar amount to 50 to correspond with the existing code. The second change is the existing code had anti-discrimination provisions in it. The model code did not, because that's not required under state law to have in the ethics code, but the board felt strongly we should still have those provisions, so they were added in. And the final change from the model code is that the board wanted me to have the ethics committee under the code match the structure of the current ethics committee in the current code. So I adopted provisions from the current code into the model code for that. So those are 3 substantive changes. There were lots of little minor changes like numbering sections and what have you, but those are the main substantive changes from the model code that the comptroller publishes.
Thank you, Ed. Does the public have any comments regarding introductory local law?
Hello everyone. My name is Martha Lopez, and I'm a concerned resident of Woodbury. I am here today to express my strong opposition to the proposed changes to your nepotism code. Aside from the fact that it was just posted yesterday, your ethics code, which didn't really provide many people enough time to actually thoroughly go through it, that alone, you guys should not be voting on the ethics code or nepotism changes to allow the community enough time to review it. But despite substantial community resistance, there is a troubling push to approve this amendment. Voting in favor of it under these circumstances would not only ignore the voices of your constituents, but could also damage your reputations and your legacies. The proposed amendment threatens the integrity of our town's governance. Upholding strict ethic standards, especially concerning nepotism, is crucial for maintaining public trust. Allowing the hiring of family members could lead to a perception of favoritism and conflicts of interest, eroding confidence in local government. Let's consider the differences between the old and the new codes. Under the old code, section 3914 stated that a town official or employee could not hire, fire, or supervise a relative, nor audit their work. Additionally, the old code included an exception for employees hired before the adoption of the code, which was intended to prevent immediate conflicts. In contrast, the new code has significantly weakened these provisions. It still prohibits direct hiring, firing, and supervision of relatives, but it does not address the oversight of relatives working or specify that an official cannot influence these decisions indirectly. Moreover, the new code eliminates the exception for employees hired before its adoption, creating a less restrictive environment. This change also removes vague but potentially significant provisions, such as where other circumstances might lead to potential conflict. This shift sets a dangerous precedent. It suggests that established ethical standards can be modified for personal gain, potentially encouraging other officials to seek similar exceptions and further compromise our ethical standards. This is not just about individual family relationships, it's about ensuring fairness and preserving the integrity of our public institutions. Additionally, this change can harm employee morale and deter talented candidates from when positions are perceived as rewards for personal relationships rather than merit. It undermines the quality of our workforce. For instance, there have been troubling reports about the hiring process at the animal shelter, where qualified candidates or where other candidates were overlooked in favor of family connections. Such practices are unacceptable and erode trust in the town's hiring procedures. It is also concerning that this proposed change was introduced shortly after the supervisor took office and explicitly stated that it was to benefit her son and the children of the other board members. This raises serious questions about whether the intent behind this amendment is to serve the interests of specific individuals rather than the broader community. The perception that personal relationships are influencing decision-making undermines trust and is fundamentally at odds with our core values. To the town board, I urge that you reject this nepotism law change. It goes against the core values of fairness and integrity that our community expects from our leaders. I appreciate him for standing by his principles and advocating for a delay in the vote. But I now call on all of you to make the right decision and vote against this amendment altogether. In conclusion, consider the risk associated with diluting our nepotism rules. Without stringent standards, we risk fostering an environment where personal relationships rather than merit drive decision-making. Upholding rigorous ethics aligns with broader legal and ethical standards and ensures fairness and accountability in public administration. For these reasons, I strongly urge you to vote against the proposed change and maintain a robust ethical framework for our town. However, if you do choose to proceed with this amendment despite the community's concerns and outrage, I advise you to ensure that the new provisions are thoroughly reviewed and enforced. The old code's more detailed restrictions helped address potential conflicts of interest more effectively. A clear, well-defined nepotism policy is crucial for maintaining transparency and fairness in our town's governance. Thank you. Sorry for the long one. Thank you.
Just to address a couple of points there. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. So first off, just to clarify what was just stated, that it was posted 2 days ago. In fact, this law was posted more than a month ago, in advance of the prior meeting. In fact, at the last board meeting, someone commented about she had read it and commented on the provisions that she read more than 3 weeks ago. So it's been available for quite some time. There was a statement made that the existing code prevents someone supervising a family member and the new code doesn't. That's incorrect. Section 3914B specifically says no municipal officer or employee may supervise relative in the performance of the relative's office, official powers or duties. So that's specifically in there. The other comment was that there was an exception, which is true, in the existing code, which says if you're already existed, you're exempted. That's a weakness. That means that if someone's elected and you're already hired, you're covered. Under the current code, that exception doesn't exist. If you were a pre-existing employee and this law kicks in even afterwards, so it doesn't exempt you if you're a pre-existing hire, it specifically requires you to fall under the code as written.
Yeah,
Anybody else in the public?
Jimmy A. Highland Mills. Ed, as far as it being posted, I didn't catch it, so I was waiting for this to be posted with the agenda, with all the supporting documents the way it normally is. Because you guys spoke about nepotism, and we saw that rule posted, but you were gonna go rework it. But in all fairness to the public, none of us knew that was available. We're not Maria. Maria lives and she's gonna search. But as far as everybody else in this room, we saw it yesterday. Yesterday afternoon. Again, we spoke about nepotism and there was a public hearing, local law 2, and I come to all these meetings. Village, town, and everything else. And generally you get a feel of what the residents are in favor of in that. People spoke up against that nepotism. Who spoke up for it? You had a letter mailed in. I started a letter writing campaign. Tim, again, you are the man. I respect you 100%. You caught it. We got to table this. Tabled it to this meeting, and now we got the whole code of ethics, and for me, it's just kind of like jammed in. I'm not an attorney, but I was just curious what was done with the code of ethics. And the old code of ethics mentions, officials, municipal employees, and everyone else, and mentions board members specifically. The new code does not mention board members. Why not? The wording now is municipal officers. If you look at the wording, it basically is in section 39.2, board means the town board of Woodbury and any municipal administrative board, planning, zoning, and board of appeals, commissions. So, according to the way I'm reading it, it's the town board and then everyone else. But as far as restricting, and let's just use nepotism, it restricts municipal employees, officials, and everyone else on these other boards from doing certain things, but not the town board. Am I misreading that?
You are. So if you read in that same section, if you look at E, municipal officer or employee means a paid or unpaid officer or employee of the town of Woodbury, including but not limited to any members of any municipal board, which includes the town board. So they are covered. Everywhere it says municipal officer or employee,
Okay.
the town board is covered.
Now, this is the turnout. This is a turnout, and it's not trick or treat. It's not. This is not a party. I'm gonna assume that most everyone here is to speak about the code of ethics, nepotism, one or the other, because it bothers them. Come on, we know how it is. We've had other issues where people don't show up. we have spoken about transparency, working together. We're not talking about the village and town. Forget about that. The five of you sitting up there, I have never questioned your love for Woodbury. I don't. I can't. Because I know all the other things you're involved with. I don't believe any of you sold out. We'll deal with the Scoofus thing later. But I don't question you guys. You guys have roots here. Everything you guys do, I believe you love Woodbury. You're not there, and again, Daniel's not here, but this is the Eagle Scouts. They volunteer, and again, these seats are going to be for the Eagle Scouts someday, for the love of Woodbury. What you're doing here is local law 2. You heard the people. Local law 1, Kate, changing supervisor, raising the supervisor's salary. There was no real opposition. There wasn't, okay? But now you got this turnout for local law 3. Unless I'm gonna get surprised that there's 20 people that are gonna come up here and it's like, congrats, this is really ironclad, you guys did a great job, let's approve it. You guys have no choice but to vote against it. This is just wrong. I understand fairness. I understand certain situations where your son wanted the job and no one was available, and whatever you have to do, you have to do. I get it. But if you told me that was a special circumstance and you guys dealt with it as a board in public with transparency, rather than rewrite a law to make something illegal legal now, because that's really what you're doing. We're not talking about you making something that is allowed disallowed now. You're covering it by changing the rules. That is, is that what's going on?
No.
I know you said you would tighten certain loopholes and in similar to other municipalities and everything else. But the whole thing is, what I hear, he may be wonderful at his job, but it seems like the public has an issue with whether it's a board member, whether it's a department head, or anybody in a position of authority hiring their family member to put them in a position because even if you sit out, you abstained hiring Doyle. But were the four of them gonna say no? I mean, it's semantics from stepping out, because we're not talking about a board where you guys are just, dislike each other, you know what, 3 of you are gonna vote against it. That's not the case. You guys work together and you don't see the harm to it. You don't see the harm, you don't see the damage. But this is the harm. At the end of the day, we vote for you, you work for us, and we count on you to do the right thing. I haven't come up here and, you know what, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. I was not looking forward to this hearing. We're not talking about me coming after, a councilman trying to sell town land. I enjoyed that. I don't enjoy this, because I believe the 5 of you love Woodbury. And if you love Woodbury the way you claim you do, you have to vote against the code of ethics. I'm sorry, I just don't see any other way. Thank you.
Thank you.
So just to address that, I don't want to recash the old hearing of the last bill, but as I noted in the last bill, it does not create a duty on anyone's part. It just says will not occur. What does that mean? I can't tell you. The court can't tell you. So this creates duties. It's clear about the responsibilities. It clears what happens if it violates them. So to your scenario, if someone abstains publicly but privately still advocates, that's still against this code. And that's still enforceable. Under the old code, is it enforceable? I don't know. It says will not occur. But what if it does? What happens? I can't tell you. So this at least has a duty and a penalty when someone breaks that duty.
No, and I understand that. I think if you listen to the public, as far as the nepotism aspect of it, people just don't want to see it. You know what? If you get elected to the position, and correct me if I'm wrong, but right now the public seems to be, hey, if you're elected to that spot, your family members should not be working full-time for the same way. You're the attorney for the town, your children should not get a job at Woodbury. Fair, unfair, I'm not gonna discuss that. But that seems to be where the public feels because they're uncomfortable with it.
That's as may be, that's not my call.
Yeah,
I'm the
no,
attorney.
I understand that.
All I'm trying to say is the old code had loopholes and it meant effectively nothing. This, which is the comptroller's code, and the code that's most adopted across the state, actually means something. So I guess if the option is between a code that can do something and a code that does nothing, which one would you prefer? That would be my only question.
I first want to say I'm not a political person, but I'm here to speak on behalf of Fisher. So, my name is Joy Blancato, and I have been a
We can't hear you outside, so.
You gotta hold the microphone.
Sorry, I did not know. I'm not a political person, but I am here on favor of Fisher. My name is Joy Blancato, and I have been a retail manager for over 20 years in the Woodbury Commons. In the past, we had no problem hiring people to come and work for us. The pandemic hit us, and it hit us hard. I walked the mall to look for people, to hire people to fill positions in my store. Every time I walk into a store, I'm given the same exact questions that I asked them. Joy, we're looking for people just like you are. Can you help us out? This past year, we hired 7 people for the summer. 2 of them were college students. 3 of them are working 2 jobs. One is a mom who's going back into the working field, working part-time. One girl we hired pulled the COVID card, thought she would get paid, then she became a no-show, no-call. The other person just never showed up. It takes us 7 days to hire on board these people. You might ask yourself, why am I saying this to you now? And why am I saying this? Because we are in a position where we can't get good people to work. You have Fisher, who is working. He's been there for over 9 months. He is dedicated, he comes, he puts in 110%. He wants this position. He wants to be there. He wants this. You're stopping it. Why would you do that? We have people in this town that are related to each other working in this town. This is what we want. We want to keep the people that we love here. Unfortunately, that's not happening, right? So please consider the fact that you have an employee who wants to work. You have somebody who wants to be there. It's not easy these days. These children are not going to make it on their own because of inflation. We now have to rely on our parents. They have to now rely on their parents. Some of them have to take on 2 or 3 roommates just to make ends meet. First of all, he grew up in this town. He loves this town just like you and me. He would love to be staying there. And we do have people who are related to each other that do work in departments. Maybe they're not department heads, but they do work. There are people who are related. I do know that in the highway department. There's people there that are related to each other. He would like to stay. He would like to be a full-time position. I think you need to think about what you're doing. Like, why we can't get people to work or stay. We can't get people. We can't even hire a part-timer to be there to help the full-timers. So why would you not want someone who is dedicated, who raised in this town, who wants to stay in this town, who wants to do the job? Why would you not want that? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
this way. Is it on? Make it the wrong button? Which button was it? I did. Keep it on? Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Greg McLeod, Highland Mills. Edits are important.
It might not be working.
Jeff, can you check that?
Where's it from?
I can just be loud. Greg McLeod. Oh, thank you. Greg McLeod, Highland Mills. Ethics are important. In my line of work as an engineer, if I'm not ethical in what I do, I might lose my license. And let's be real. It's summer. Summer's just wrapping up. If this was out 30 days ago, even 60 days ago, we're on vacation, we're doing this, we're doing that. I haven't had the time to sit down and review what the code was versus what you're proposing to change. If you're strengthening it, awesome, I tip my hat to you. But if it's weakening it potentially, or if it's setting things up for down the line, people might take advantage and find loopholes in the new wording, we need a chance to review that. And I apologize for not taking that chance earlier, but I think tabling this and reviewing it in another 30 days or 60 days, when people are more paying attention in general and not off on holiday, might make some sense. In closing, as it pertains to nepotism, I don't care race, creed, color. I don't care if you're related or not. What I care about is the best person gets hired for the job. That's the bottom line. Thank you.
Amen.
That's it.
Anybody else have any comments?
I can project.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you got it.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Melendez, and I've been a resident of Highland Mills for over 16 years now. I am here to comment on the amended Code of Ethics. I took the time to review both the new and older version, and would like to make the following observations. Section 39-14, nepotism. Reality is that in a small town government, it is highly likely that most employees are familiar with one another's family members. At the end of the day, this policy does not mitigate undue leverage of one candidate over another. The language of the original is clear. Employees' relatives will not be employed by the town on a full-time basis under any of these circumstances, and it goes on to delineate a variety of scenarios, the last of which states, where one of the parties is an elected official, except when the family is currently employed by the town and becomes a family member of an official. Now, in all fairness, it does exempt people who were already who were already working for us, right, for the town. The older version specifically points out the scenario which was, in part, one of the reasons, it seems, for the review of the code. While this exercise is important, I find that the new version essentially allows for the hiring of family members, just as long as one family member is not supervising and in no way impacts or influences or is involved in the supervision, decisions, treatment, or interactions with or on behalf of their family member. Well, why does this still feel like nepotism? Still feels like nepotism. It doesn't address the pink elephant in the room, and that is, how will our municipal hiring practices ensure that individuals seeking employment within our municipal government be treated fairly should they be competing for a position at the same time as another person with the leverage of having a family member already employed by the municipality? So why does the new version not distinguish between full-time and part-time employment? I personally am not opposed to part-time employment, because in my mind, part-time work is seasonal, mainly summer. It doesn't require and include a benefits package. However, full-time employment should be off the table and clearly stipulated in section 39-14. if we are going to allow family members to be employed at all. Lastly, I would recommend that we require each employee to fill out a disclosure form indicating their family members also working for the municipality, and that the ethics committee conduct a review of our municipal departments and boards to gain a more accurate understanding of the prevalence of nepotism within our departments and the strength of this code. I thank you for your service. I know this is not easy. And I submit these comments for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Go ahead.
Could I just, am I on? No. Okay,
There you go.
Can I just address 2 points? First, as the language she quoted says, the language in the current code says, this situation will not occur. That's not how we write laws. We say, you shall or shall not do something, or you may or may not do something. We put duties on people. To say, that's like saying, the law says, speeding will not happen. Well, what if it does? Is the driver responsible? Maybe. It doesn't say the driver should not speed. It just says speeding will not happen. Is the police officer who let the speeding go by, is he responsible? Does he get cited? It doesn't say whose duty or what. It doesn't enforce it. This has an enforceable duty. The other thing I'll point out is, to your point, is the opposite, is that you're right. The current code only is limited to full-time employees. And only employees. It does not cover part-time employees. It does not cover consultants like myself who are appointed by the board to do a job. It doesn't cover anyone except for full-time employees. The current code covers all of those people. So if I were a relative of the board, then this law would apply to me. I mean, I'm not, but it would apply to me as a consultant where the current code does not. So I could be someone's brother up there and they could hire me no problem under the current code. I think a lot of people would find that objectionable. This code covers me. The current code doesn't. So it is broader in that sense.
So, are you saying that under the old code, which they wanted to change, and many people that worked already for the town, their significant others or their family members had to resign because they couldn't get a job while they were in office? So you're telling me that this law here is stronger written than the old code that prevented that from happening on a full-time basis? Because I didn't see anything in there that said a full-time employee relative, a full-time relative, or whatever relative is this, however it's defined, cannot. I don't see where it says they cannot be employed. But the old one did say that they cannot be employed full-time, correct?
The old code says this will not happen.
Okay, but it prevented it from happening. So regardless of whether or not that's not the way it normally is written, it did prevent it from happening, yes?
I don't know. Well, here's the question, and this is the problem. Let's say it happened. Let's say someone hired a family member full-time,
Right,
okay? What happens?
they were fired. They had to resign.
They
And
couldn't,
you-
no,
there's
no,
people here that have had to have that happen. So you should
There's-
probably ask them.
there's people here who
Desiree? Desiree, is she still here? I don't know if she was here.
we don't need to
earlier.
bring Desiree.
Desiree, didn't your husband have to resign?
My husband was employed,
Uh-huh,
then he left on his own accord to do something else,
okay.
and then applied to be returned and wasn't able to do so because of the law.
Because of the law. So he left, he wanted to come back and he couldn't because that current law stated that he couldn't.
No, but you're missing my point. Let's say they hired him anyway. What happens?
But they didn't, but that's my point, is that they didn't. So where in this code is, I guess what I'm asking
Yes.
is that where in this law does it say that he cannot be hired, that a family member cannot be hired, like they did in the old one?
And I'm, right, I understand what you're asking. And I'm trying to explain. The old code, if someone hired her husband anyway,
Right?
What's the penalty?
No, that's not what I'm asking.
No, no, no,
I don't
no.
care about the penalty.
You're not, but you're, right, but I'm saying it's an unenforceable law. It's a meaningless law. It doesn't do anything.
Okay.
It says it will not happen, but if it does, who gets, does her husband have to resign? Does the person who hired him gets fired? What happens? It doesn't do anything. It just says will not. I can't tell you what happens because it doesn't do anything.
Okay.
This has a duty and says you cannot be involved in decisions. That's the point. I understand what you're saying, and there is
So,
no,
but they can still be hired, is what
there
you're
is no
saying?
blanket provision here, correct?
Okay, so you're saying
But-
that they can be hired full-time, it's just that they cannot supervise, even though they're the board. So even though they're the board, and ultimately, they all supervise, right? And yes, they can say, they can refrain from voting on something, but we all know that that really is meaningless, right? So that, the current law, the way that you're saying is that it doesn't stipulate they can't hire someone full-time, but it does show what can happen if something should happen.
The current code has an unenforceable prohibition. That means nothing. This code says here's a duty, and if it's violated, it can be enforced.
So what's the duty?
The
Tell
duty
me
is
again, what's the
the
duty?
duty is that they cannot make any employment decisions. They can't be involved in those employment decisions, and they can't
Right.
supervise.
But they have to recuse themselves, but they can still be hired. So the family member can still be hired under
Fired.
this law, right? Okay, that's all I wanted. I just wanted to make that clear.
I
That they
understand.
can still be hired
I
under this
understand
law.
that, right.
Okay, thank you.
Jacqueline Hernandez.
No, it's okay.
Jacqueline Hernandez, Highland Mills. I want to first acknowledge everyone out here. This is a beautiful thing. I definitely don't envy you guys on the board because I know the feeling of being on that side of it. So I do welcome and thank the fact that everybody's been very kind through this process because it is difficult to be on that side. But with that said, I definitely wanted to weigh in on this particular area because it is something that I am very passionate about. When we talk about nepotism, we're talking about the act of nepotism in the town. We're talking about eliminating opportunities for people, right? And so that's really what we want to kind of focus on. And I do empathize. I am a business owner in the area. I do empathize with the idea that it is very hard to find good people to work, and we never want to discourage that in our town. But the laws that we have in place are there for a reason. So I just want to kind of go back to council. One of the conversations that I know that was circling this particular issue is that we had previous council that is no longer with us. I worked when I was on the town board with the previous council, and he was with us for many years. I was very surprised to hear that he was taken off as council, and that new council had been assigned. I don't know you all, I'm sure that you're coming from a reputable law firm, but when I heard that, I gotta say that I was astounded because when I was on the board, our council served us very well when he was on board. And from my understanding is that he was removed because there was conflict. And that becomes the first area of concern for me, right? Because we all know that council is there to guide us legally in the things that should and should not happen. And I don't know the particulars, so I don't sit here and assume why that happened. But that's the first point in which I became involved with what's been going on, because I've had direct experience with previous council, and they served our town well. With that said, when we talk about the issues surrounding this, one of the areas that, again, took my interest was when Pam was the director of ACO, she was the department head. And so the town, as a town board, we were there to manage the department heads. So every department head had to report to the town board. We were also responsible for making sure that the department heads were appointed, unless they were, is it not going?
Yeah, I don't think it's working.
I hear you.
Um,
So as far as.
Everybody
I'm
gets
saying like they're not working.
Could you at least hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
It stopped.
I felt like I projected.
So I'll just back up a little bit. I said one of the first issues that I had with this, as a previous town board member, was that the council that I worked with on the board, I served on the board with, was removed, and new council was, put in place. And for me, that was very surprising when I first heard that, because I had served with that council, and that council had been there prior to me and had served the town of Woodbury, diligently. With that said, I'm not assuming the reasons why, but I know part of it from what I understood surrounded this particular issue. And so with that alarmed me, because again, when you have a town officials eliminating a council or removing council, typically there's a reason for it, whether the council's serving us well or maybe not. So that's where I first became a little more involved in what was going on. The second issue is that when you have a town board, you have a department head. Each department head is responsible for a department that the town board is responsible for overseeing. ACO under Pam, Pam was the department head for ACO, and so she was directly responsible to the town board. From my understanding, the ACO now, the department was placed under the police department. Is that what happened? So I kind of question what was the reason for that, because now you have a department head being placed under another department head. And so was that done to remove one level, where they're not necessarily directly responsible to the town of Woodbury, the town of Woodbury board, and now he's responsible, or that position's responsible to the police department. So the police department is the department head, and now they're a sub-department. I wasn't really sure what was the reason for taking that position, that was a department head position, and putting it under the police department. I wasn't sure with that. So that kind of, again, alarmed me, like what was the reasoning behind that when ACO was always a department head?
Jackie, this is for the local law, so I'm not sure if that is
I'm
incorporated into what you're speaking about, where you have the local law.
I'm coming to that point now,
Yeah.
right? So again, when we talk about nepotism, right, we're talking about the town board and then the person who's directly underneath them, right? So a department head has direct contact with the town board, and the town board's responsible for that position. So when we talk about nepotism, right, we wanna say, well, a person who is responsible. So as a town board member, if I have a department head, I'm directly responsible for that person getting a raise, going full-time. So when I talk about nepotism, I'm establishing where my concern is, right? So when you take a department head and you put them under someone else, I'm not directly responsible for their pay anymore. Now, so my question is, why would you do that unless it is trying to undermine a bigger issue here, which is nepotism? Okay, so the third is, council shared with one of the community members that recuse has been used, right? So there's been emphasis on the fact that you have provided enforcement. Enforcement and the ability to recuse yourself are two different things, right? Because if you put enforcement in place, that of course is what you want to see in a law, right? That strengthens it. But why would you remove something that prevents something, right? So my thought would be, if this prevents this from happening, then I want to strengthen it by putting an enforcement behind it. So you stated it was weak because there was no enforcement, but if it prevented somebody from the act of nepotism, the improvement of that law would be to add an enforcement to it to then solidify it. But what you're saying to me is that instead you put enforcement with recusing. To recuse is to create the loophole that we are trying to prevent. And I say that because I was in office and I've seen it abused, right? And I've seen people recuse themselves, and there was conversations privately in the board where it's understood how everyone was going to vote. I've been there, right? And so I say this, and I caution the board, and I caution the community, that when we talk about changing a law that was put in place, I've seen laws change, and laws have been changed in ways that language weakens it, and it undermines what we set out to do. When our prior predecessors saw the writing on the wall and tried to prevent it, it was done for a reason, and it's happening again. And I don't care what kind of language we want to put. When a person recuses themselves, it does not prevent nepotism from still happening. All it does is says, I didn't vote on it, right? But my peers did. And they're doing what's best in the best interest. But I'm going to tell you, being on a board when you're friends and you all got each other's back, it's very hard, even if you don't believe in it, it's very hard to go against the grain, because then you become isolated on your board. And I'm sure all board members are very familiar. It's very hard to go against the grain, and you get criticized for that, right? And as many times when I was on a board, I went against things behind closed doors because I did not agree with things with my board. Even when I came out in public, I was attacked. So I'm just gonna finish with this, is that anybody who wants to apply for a job, there's a way to apply. And I agree, if there's a qualified candidate that's out there that wants to, absolutely they should. There are many jobs, thankfully, going all the way to our county executive. We have a website that I see constantly full of jobs, civil service jobs that are available. And I would encourage anybody that wants to work for the government, absolutely, there's many jobs to apply for. But in this town, I believe that the laws are there to protect us. And if we're going to do anything, council, to strengthen it, it would be to add enforcement to the laws that exist, not to eliminate it or change it, that ultimately creates the loopholes that we're trying to avoid. Thank you.
So, I can't address former counsel's departure without breaking attorney-client privilege. If the board wants to, that's their prerogative. All I can say is, I've talked to prior counsel as part of the transition, and this had nothing to do with it. So, beyond that, I can't say anything else. In terms of what you just said about recusal, recusal is not what the language says. It says, no officer may participate. So your back channel discussions behind closed doors, that would violate the law. And so, as we all know, if you're involved in litigation, you can sue. There's ways, if people do that and people sue, that information comes out and it would be enforceable. So it's not just a recusal and I'm done. That's not how the law says. The law reads it says no participate. And well, then it would still be illegal. And again, with this option, this bill is the comptroller's bill. I didn't write it from scratch. It's the comptroller's bill. And one of the beauties of that is because it's the comptroller's bill, that there's case law interpreting the provisions and what they mean. And there's case law that interprets that, and to your exact point, there's case law that says if they do that, that violates this code. So I understand what you're going to tell me. You're about to say, it happens anyway.
And
people
to that point, and I understand that. I understand what you're saying. I understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Our predecessors who created this law put that law in place because they know what happens in small towns. And let me say this: I appreciate what the comptroller wrote, but every town has the ability to govern themselves, and that is what I learned in Albany. Is that as a town of Woodbury, we have the right to govern ourselves. The comptroller can recommend something, but they don't know what happens in the town of Woodbury. And the town of Woodbury residents do. And so we have the ability to govern ourselves, and respectfully, I thank you for what the comptroller said. If it would strengthen the town of Woodbury and what our predecessors put in place, I'm absolutely about that. But if it's going to weaken, and I have been in office to tell you that recusing or avoiding or not being partaking means nothing in this town. So that is a loophole that I want to identify for the community.
That's all well and good. What I was gonna end with is saying that under the current code, not illegal. Under this code, it is.
So let's strengthen it by enforcing it.
Well, that's what we're trying to do.
You're rewriting it.
Hi everyone. My name is Saeed Muslim. I'm a resident in Central Valley for the last 15, 16 years. As I'm listening to everything, and I have to apologize for not being more involved in the politics of the time, but as someone who lived here, and in a way, maybe I was naive to not get more involved, I witnessed the favoritism. It has a big, deep history in this town. And it goes to the mindset in adding to that of the sense of entitlement. And what we are saying, what I am saying, and definitely I make sure that I be involved and learn more about it, is this town belongs to all of us, regardless of race, nationality, religion. I studied politics, but my major is more of a global politics. But I know scapegoating is one of the ways that is used intentionally or unintentionally by other people to divide us instead of unite us. We want to be united. We live in this town. The town board, the village board, they are, with all due respect for all of them, I know the laws need to be progressed more and more, but we have to be more involved, and we have to be more transparent instead of gossiping, rumoring. Let's be transparent. Let's talk to each other. Let's see what it is, what our differences are, and then what is the solution, which is fair to everyone. So that being said, because as the gentleman who is engineer said, the point, let us read it more, study it more, even for the community member, maybe we can have more meetings together, to just brainstorm together and let our representative know what we think. Let's not rush into it, because at the end of the day, when I go home and I want to sleep, the ethic and the consciousness is, I think I feel it all the time.
There you go.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, is not only for us, for me, it's also for next generation and next generations. We owe that, especially at this time of political crisis. So what I request is, let us have more time, let's read it more, let's, just talk about it more and come to consensus that would be beneficial to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Patrick Glauber, and I live in Highland Mills for the last, I'm still young, for the last 3.5 years. As someone says, we should look at the audience, how many people came out to show up. I didn't show up because of this reason. I showed up for something else. I hope it's going to be still time to discuss something else. Things going on today. But as an outsider, I didn't follow the politics. Thanks God, I was very busy in work the last few months. so I didn't have time to look at the politics, to read so much newspapers. So mainly is what I was listening today, so everything what I'm talking today is basically as an outsider, I was listening there. So there's something that we all can acknowledge, that a lot of people who spoke today was a lot of things politically motivated and hate. Well, there's one thing that all of us have in common, that all of us wants the best workers, the best employees for Woodbury, and we all want and we all hope that Woodbury should stay the comfortable town how it is right now. So I didn't read not the old, not the new, anything of these laws. As I said, it was, thanks God, so busy the last few weeks, few months, and as I showed up for something else. There's some questions where I had, meanwhile listening to all the speeches, I would like to know if we can have my honor to ask from the attorneys some questions that I want better to understand. There is something about employees. We all know that we need to take employees, and we all know that it's so hard to find employees right now. We all know that. Let's not give an example about the animal shelter, let's give an example for paramedics. We all know there's an issue right now in Woodbury with paramedics. There is not enough paramedics. I know there's a lot of other towns here in Orange County who have started paying for paramedics. The same thing as in Rockland County. Could be it's gonna happen soon in Woodbury here, but let's give an example of paramedics. We all understand when it comes to a position, we all look on the career and on the resume. Is there any loophole if it comes to a job that when someone shows up with a resume that he is number one, he's going to be the number one paramedic with 20 years of experience and he lives in Woodbury, he can be the number one and best candidate, but the only issue is he is a brother or a sister to anyone of the town, that he should be able to get on this job. Even there's 2 other applicants who just walk out from school right now and are still doing internship.
So, in your hypothetical, the paramedics are gonna be town employees, because they're not currently?
I'm just giving it as an example.
Okay, so in that scenario, if it's a application for a town employee, and they're related to the person that comes in, if the application comes in, any relative, doesn't matter if they're elected official or not, if they have multiple relatives, it has to be completely out of the process. And they have to be hired independently, and whoever does the hiring can't be influenced or otherwise talk to anyone who's involved by who's a relative. That's what this code will provide.
Okay, so basically my question was, because we all understand when everything is having a loophole, it's sometimes you can see on the resumes that this person could be in the job much better than other people. The same thing sometimes we can see no applicants came in, and just because this people breathes Woodbury, he lives at Woodbury because his family is doing so much for the community, this is why he wants to show up and do this job, whatever it is that no one wants to give an application. So this needs to be some kind of loophole. So you say that there is something, but this person is not involved. Make sense?
Yeah.
This was the only question, my only concern, and I hope if this is something that could be done, this is something that needs to be done because we are a small town. We're not New York City. We're not any other big cities that we have a choice of so much people. We are a small town and we need to understand that this is something that could happen and it's gonna happen. And if this is the issue right now, it's gonna repeat and repeat and repeat because the people who are doing, these families are doing it again. And we all know government are not paying nicely. We all know that. So the people who are breeding Woodbury, they're gonna show up for these jobs. And if no one else is showing up for this job, it's some loophole needs to be. So thank you for making sure there's a loophole for this.
Yeah, I don't think I use the word loophole, but I understand your point.
Sure.
But yeah, under the current code, in theory, depending on search course, the person could be excluded entirely. Under the new code, they could be hired as long as there was no influence. So.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Raishon Butler. I live in Highland Mills. We are fairly new to the community, so we do not have the personal history that it seems like many of you have. So my concern is not as much about who works for the town currently or grandfathered in. My concern is for the generations that come after us, especially now, as you said, like we live in a small town. I would like to stay in a small town, and as the growth continues, that's where my concern is what is that gonna look like? Because in a lot of other towns where the growth has started to expand, it has been only nepotism. If you look into some of these boards, it is a father, it is all of the sons working underneath them, it is a cousin, and so now it's wonderful that maybe that seems okay. But really just start to project, if you think about the growth, what that's gonna look like as we continue if we don't kind of think about it now. That's the only comment.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
My name is Elizabeth Farrar. I live in Central Valley.
Thank you, Tom.
They're good.
My name is Elizabeth Farrar, and I live in Central Valley. I'm also a local Woodbury teacher in the district. I understand some of the comments that were made today, and I sympathize on how hard it is to find people to fill jobs. Everyone in this town wants the best quality person and has to have the opportunity to get the jobs that are open. The feelings of the town members, I feel, are not that we don't want the best person to get the job, but that nepotism could get in the way of someone getting the best job. As far as the attorney, I don't think you're hearing what people are saying. We're happy that you're tightening the laws, fixing things that were in the previous law that we can't hold responsible. But what you're not hearing is that people don't want the nepotism part to change. So you can keep addressing the part that you're tightening the law. That's great, tighten it, fix the things that are wrong with it. But don't change the nepotism part is what I think people here are trying to say. I had a lot more to say, but I don't think I need to say it. I think this room, the fact that I'm waiting outside the door, it speaks volumes. It speaks that you need to listen to the community. You need to stop and wait and pause on this, get more information out there, and then make a decision. But the fact that this room is this tight and waiting outside, I think that we need to stop and think before we change anything. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
So I will just say, I absolutely hear what everyone's saying. I think people are confused about what my role is here. I do not make policy. I did not draft the bill and say, guys, pass this bill, do it right now. I talk to them. I say, what do you want? They tell me what they want. I give them drafts. They review the drafts. They give me comments. Sandy is the queen of catching all my typos, and I have a lot of them, okay?
You still have a lot of them.
I hope not, but either way, I'm not perfect. But what I will say is, all I can do is explain what the law does because that's my role. What the policy should be is not what I do and not what you want me to do. I'm not hired here to be a political advisor. I'm not hired here to be an advocate for anything. I'm hired here to tell the board what is and isn't the law. And when the board says to me, make the law better because there's lots of problems with it, and I say, okay, well, here's what the comptroller says. This is a good law. We talk about it. They give me input. So I guess what I'm saying is, everyone seems to think that I'm the one here being apologetic or something. I'm not. I'm just telling what the law does versus the current law. Policy decisions are all up there. It's not my role. So don't project on me that I'm. No, don't project on anybody. What I'm saying is there seems to be this sentiment that was expressed in the last meeting as well, that I'm this insidious person who came in here to Woodbury and I'm going to ruin your nepotism law. I take instructions. I draft what I'm told. And I don't advocate to them, they advocate to me. So.
Good evening, everyone. Ray Hernandez, Highland Mills. I'd like to poll the board. Who initiated to have this new law or this law change? And I'd like to hear from every single one of them on the board individually. Who initiated to revise this law, change this law, amend this law? You guys can start wherever you want, but I'd like to hear from everyone, every individual. Who started this change of this law, this provision, this amendment. I'd like to hear from everyone on the board.
Not me.
Brandon said not him. Teresa, you said no. Sandy, you said no. Tim? Okay, the supervisor?
I guess, I don't know.
Yes or no? Yes or no?
Was you the one initiated?
I didn't initiate it when we came and we had the board meeting and found out, and our attorney at the time, as you were saying, we think that this came from him. He didn't even know this law existed. When my son was hired, he didn't even know the law existed. Somebody asked us if this was ethically right, and we were all like, and we looked at him and he said it's fine. Desiree was the one who told me the next day that this was a law and that it wasn't. We had no idea that this was even a law and there was anything written in there. And that's when Desiree and our attorney started to look into it. So that's how it came about. When none of us even knew that this was a law, we didn't know anything about that. When my son got hired, I put my hands up and said, I can't vote, it's my son. It was never not transparent. I never didn't not put it out there, so people saying I hid it or didn't say anything. I put my hands up in the meeting, you can watch the meeting, and I said, that's my son, I can't vote on him, exactly like that. There was no hidden agenda. And when somebody asked, we turned to our attorney and he didn't even know. And that's how it went down.
So you initiated the change of this law because there was an issue with your son being hired.
No, I think
Is that
it was,
correct?
no, that's when the law got looked into.
I highly recommend that everyone on the board, you guys are up there to represent the residents of this community. I highly recommend that you guys vote this law down, table it so we could do some more research. Madam Supervisor, are you up for re-election next year? Okay. I strongly suggest you reconsider this because you're up for re-election. Thank you.
Ray,
And I just wanna add, if it weren't for Fisher back in March, he would've, and if he was not able to work the hours that he could, there would be no one at the shelter. So, does everyone want the shelter to close, or do you want it to succeed? And there's nobody knocking on our door saying, I wanna work for the shelter for $19 an hour.
But the
other thing is when Fisher was hired.
Teacher in Monroe Woodbury that
Martha, hold on one
said
second.
she-
Martha,
When Fisher was hired, he was hired under the current law, and it was perfectly legal. Like the current law
Part-time.
allowed it.
Part-time. Yeah.
Part-time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's.
it was only when he wanted to go, what the heck? When that was already said. It was only when he wanted to go for a full-time position that this law was found out. Okay? So now, as Councilwoman Luongo said, we were faced with a choice. Okay? And his hours are running out. So when his hours run out, and we have 2 resignations for personal reasons, which I will personally go to when that time comes. Who's at the shelter? Is there any volunteers in this room?
We
have
volunteered.
volunteers.
I volunteered to work there. I was told no, so that's one.
You submitted an application?
I was told no, not to even submit an application.
I wish the lieutenant was here tonight, because I'd like to know how many applications we have for the part-time.
There are
this year.
plenty of Girl Scouts and other teenagers that would love
We're
to
not
help
just talking
out.
about volunteers, we're talking about the current vacancies, employees,
I'll talk
people
in a
that are
minute.
going
Wasn't
through
Mark
the.
Anthony from,
Is it the Shawnee match now?
She is.
Where-
Are you talking about
Matola.
Ms. Matola? I called
She
him
had
up, he
asked.
said
Okay.
for $19 an hour, he wouldn't take the job.
She said she went, that he went.
He
for the-
submitted an application, and I actually took the application, and I called him the other day because don't have enough employees, and 2 people were resigning, and I called him up, and he said that he needed to talk to his wife, and he came in for another job with Joey, and he said that it wasn't enough to him.
Can I?
So this actually brings me to what I'm thinking. There has to be space for ingenuity and problem solving. And so I'm thinking maybe as a town we have a job fair that's just specifically in our town. And we can really like have people during the summertime, like not even during the summertime, maybe maybe twice a year where we can at least get a sense of who's searching for work in the town. There are a lot of new families, and really, I have to say that not everybody's looking at the website. The information isn't glaring, like, we've got jobs in this town and you need to apply for it. That's not, no. Are we talking to our high school seniors at all? I don't know. But there are opportunities that I think that maybe perhaps we should consider if this is such a problem. I know a lot of teenagers that work in Woodbury Commons, and they do it for $19 an hour. And I happen to know a lot of seniors that, they like cats.
But the issue is, they're part-time. We're looking for a full-time person.
Well, a senior who's
Okay,
graduating.
everyone, guys. Please, to make this, we don't want to get into a shouting match. Let's have the people at the microphone make their comments. The board or I can respond, but let's try and keep it orderly because it's already been a long night. I understand the tempers are high. Can we please try and keep it from becoming a chaotic shouting match?
Okay, 2 more comments, and that is one, we do have mention of the ethics committee. And this really needs to happen. We have to have an ethics committee that is active and involved. If we don't have an ethics committee, is there one? It's even articulated in the code. It talks extensively about the ethics committee, but I don't hear any mention of an ethics committee. And I think that if we had an ethics committee, our lawyer or counselor probably would not have been so inclined to say, I don't know.
Lisa, in the past, under the current law, there have been other town boards, Woodbury town boards that have tried to establish and create ethics committees, but they were unable to do it because A, people didn't want to fill out the full disclosures, and B, they didn't want their credit run, they didn't want to be, checked, their background checked by the police.
Wow.
And
Which is all gonna be requirements under this.
Yes. Yeah, as it should be, because someone who's ethical is not gonna have an
Correct.
issue with that.
so in the past, it's not like it's never been tried.
Yeah.
But people were reluctant once they found out everything that they had to go through.
Okay, so in essence, an ethics committee is non-existent.
Right now, there's no ethics.
Right now, there is no committee.
Okay. And so lastly, I just wanna, issue a word of encouragement. This is good. You're sitting up there, you might have felt uncomfortable at certain moments, or maybe not. Brandon's shaking his head, no, good. But this is good. This is what's supposed to happen. This is actually us supporting you in doing your work. So when you have people come out, and you have us giving you feedback, say, wow, this is good. This is a conversation. So I just want to leave you with that. And again, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
I just wanted to tell you that we do post, we post on the county website, we post on our website, we post on Constant Contact, the same thing that everybody gets when they go to parks or anything from the library happening. We post on there, and we post on Facebook also, just so this way you know, we are posting about jobs.
I don't know what they're doing today.
Can I suggest about school tomorrow? Maybe we could pause the hearing, let him do his presentation, and then bring the hearing back?
Will you give us a second?
Yeah,
Just
two-
like-
I got 2 questions. You go up there, you know them. Thank you.
I want to give the floor to Eden. Eden, you're still a Boy Scout, right? This is to get your Eagle Scout?
I'm Lindsay on Eagle Scout project, and I want approval to, I want approval for my Eagle Scouts project, and I want to present to you. Alright, so, good afternoon everyone. My name is Aiden Eskenazi, and I'm from Woodbury Troop 4, and today I'm proud to present my Eagle Scout project, which is to design to improve safety and organization at the Earl Reservoir. As you may know, the reservoir has recently introduced new swan paddle boats, providing both local visitors with a fun and enjoyable way to experience the water. However, these new additions comes the need for enhanced safety measures, specifically for proper storage of organization of life vests. Currently, the life vests are stored in a disorganized manner, often left in a messy box, making it difficult for people to access them efficiently. Safety is the highest priority when enjoying the water, and I believe we can do better. My project aims to build a portable life vest rack that will store up to 40 life vests. This rack will have 10 rows on each side and will be built with sturdy, weather-resistant materials, ensuring its longevity. The design includes 2 vertical 2x4s on each side to provide additional supports, and it will be mounted on wheels for easy mobility. This way, the rack can be moved as needed and stored away when not in use, keeping the vests both organized and dry. Not only will this improve the overall experience for visitors by providing them with easy access to life vests, but will also contribute to a safer and more welcoming environment at the Earl Reservoir. I'm confident that this improvements will be beneficial to both the parks and recreation departments and the community as a whole. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to your feedback.
Thank you, Aiden, for your presentation. We have somebody, can I have a motion and a second to approve the project?
Second.
Oh. Any discussion?
Just want to say thank you again. You know, we say the same thing when we're lucky enough to have this troop in our community. And every time you go out, you can see something different. You know, whether it's the picnic tables or whatever it may be. There's so many different examples. So we have it all to these young men. So thank you on behalf of the community.
I just have one question for Joe. Joe, you're okay as far as where the storage room and everything? Okay, that's all I have.
Well, can't you store it in the building if it's not in use?
I just wanted to make sure that.
Is it running at the end was, but not only that, when you go down, so they got a whole family to Daniel.
Something positive.
Yeah.
Alright, thank you everyone.
And look, I freed up some seats for you.
Alright, we all have to finish voting. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye. You're very welcome.
So, Ken, and then Brandon and I will second.
You can have it.
You
get third. You can have it.
Alright.
John Keller, Highland Mills. First question I wanted to ask is, why is the hiring going for the animal shelter going through the police department? Police department's got enough to do, okay? And I'll get to that later, because that's something I'll bring up. But I'm sure there's someone in this town that can do the hiring for the animal shelter. And that job should be an internal job. And the police should be doing police work, because I'm sure there's plenty of police work in this town that should be getting done. Next thing, you're talking about the ethics board. What are we waiting for? What is the hiring process gonna be to get people on the ethics board? Because you gotta have a hiring process. Nobody that works in the town or is on the town board can be on the ethics committee. And you have to have a process and you have to have people apply for it. You gotta get this thing going. You have to have, the village has got an ethics board, they got theirs going. You gotta get this going, because this whole thing tonight is all revolving around ethics. And it functions all around you guys. So, you don't resolve that, you don't resolve anything else. So get that going, and you resolve half of this problem right here.
John, just to answer your question about the police department, so when Pam was in, the animal shelter, it was under the police department. And then after she was doing it for a while, they moved away from the police department. When Pam resigned, and we had two people that were in animal control, they weren't able to take Pam's position because they didn't have 2 years' experience. So both of them are going out on maternity leave. We didn't have anything to do. Our old town supervisor, Tom Burke, was gonna make himself the department head. And then we kind of pushed it to Sergeant Correa, and then Sergeant Correa was the department head, and then it moved from him to Lieutenant Phillips. And then we just had it under the umbrella of the police department while we've been going through this transitional phase with our animal shelter, while we lost staff that we had. And now we have Sonia, who is now our department head, and is transitioning over to her, and she is going to be taking over all these roles, hiring and everything. Everything's a transition period. You know, Pam left, we had two people who were on ACO that both went out on maternity. And we lost 3 great people at once. And we're taking the time that we can to hire the people that we need, we're putting it out there, and we're doing the best job that we can. So, and Sonia has been doing an incredible job, she did this back in Westchester, you know,
Okay. But
so.
that's why I say police need to do their job.
Well, people have to understand the way
That's
that
not
it
being
goes.
done either.
It
But that
doesn't
has
work like
nothing,
that.
that has nothing to do with the local law here.
No.
So let's continue with the local law.
I just try to make it brief. What amazed me, and honestly I have to be, the thing is Mr. Hernandez, right? When he asked each member of the board about this law that, they're talking about, none of you guys knew about it. And then you, Kathleen, the council, you said it was initiated by Desiree. Maybe Desiree can explain it because she's been working in town and village for a long time. So maybe she can talk to us. And that is, to me, that is, if the law is enacted like that, and initiated like that, there is something needs to be done about it. It is amazing to me. And also about, I think I'm not that familiar, so the village has its own ethical committee. It has been in there from the very beginning. They just did it. So we want to know more about that.
Well,
So-
just to be clear, they haven't actually done it yet.
Right.
They voted on people, but they haven't passed the background check, so they actually haven't constituted,
Oh.
just so it's clear.
I see. And honestly, with the bigger issue that the school fees and the town and board and everything, if we have one village, one board, whatever, just let's have that ethic committee. I don't know, please, just let's have it. It is really needed. It is really needed. It is really needed.
Thank you.
And if Desiree wants to say something, we would love it.
Come on, Desiree. Why don't you tell us how the law was created?
Huh?
I said, why don't you tell them all how the law was created?
Yeah, tell us.
I think you've all heard enough about that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I didn't hear that. We would love to
Anybody
hear
else?
more.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have anything to say?
Yeah, I know.
Ed, can I bother you for 1 second? Okay, so as far as you're explaining that in legalese will not and doesn't work, I get that, okay? As far as, but I also see there's penalties on the old code of ethics. As far as people, it's there, it's penalties for offenses. If you're saying that I cannot impose a penalty because of the will not, or that was the change. And I acknowledge that you're catching a lot of the heat because, hey, you wrote this. But no, he didn't write this. He is doing this under the direction of the board. So now the question is, honestly, I understand the animal shelter. I understand, but sometimes, you know what? If we can't run the animal shelter at full, you know, maybe it was not meant to be. But to intentionally tell the attorney to rewrite that nepotism part, to exclude that, is our concern. Because the penalties were there. So he basically just took out that prohibition.
Not quite. So let me try and explain. So when the law says this situation will not happen,
Yes.
and it does, who broke the law? It doesn't tell you. Who has a duty to not? Is it the person with the hiring? The person who was hired? A person who is the elected official who isn't maybe in charge of that?
But why not address that scenario? If someone violates the law, we fix that. You just took that all out.
So.
No, he was.
I know, no, that's what I'm saying. As far as you were advised to take that out.
No. Okay, so let's be
No?
clear about something. No. Let's be clear with something. The nepotism bill that was the prior bill predates me.
Correct.
Not to throw anybody under the bus, it was actually researched and drafted by someone else, who was not me. Right, it wasn't our firm at all. It wasn't the prior council either. That bill that was put forward. When the board instructed me, because for other reasons, when we talked about the code, I said there's a lot of problems with the code, and I pointed them out to them. When the board instructed me to go and say, draft a new code, I said, this language, this nepotism language, is super common. And why is it super common in so many municipalities in New York State? And I said, oh, here's why. It comes from the comptroller's model code. So then I went back to the board and said, this language comes from the model code from the comptroller. It's the most adopted, the most litigated. There's lots of case law that explains it and all the provisions, like what they mean. It's well researched. I would recommend using this as a base, but I gave them other options, and they said, no, you're right, this is a good base to start from, and that's why this law is based on the model code.
So, you proposed that because there was issues with that. But you do see the significant difference between the old and the new, and that is why there's so much concern and discomfort with the Woodbury residents.
I understand that there's a different law. I'm not denying that.
Off the top of your head, if I told you to rewrite the old nepotism rule to prohibit that and clarify who's going to be penalized and what the resolution is, could you do it?
I would scrap it and start from, I could do something similar, but I'd scrap it and start from scratch anyway, because it's so poorly written.
You are clearly capable of giving me something similar in the proper legal terminology, where it's applicable, where there are no questions. We don't need an ethics committee. You know what? This is a violation. Here's the solution. Take care of it.
I don't want to touch similar, because what's similar to you when I was similar to me?
But I'm just saying, but not this. The new one is basically, I'm gonna sit out the vote, you guys vote, I had nothing to do with it. That's the discomfort. The whole issue is, I'm not saying this board always, but once they pass it, the next board, the following board, who's gonna do the right thing? You never know. If you put it in the proper legal terms that this cannot happen, and if it does, these are the penalties, end of story. And that's what it seems like everybody wants, because it alleviates our concerns about nepotism. That's just clear cut. For you not to see that, or we can keep talking around it, and well, who's also gonna step out and accuse themselves? That's great. But this is not for today. You don't want to set precedent for the future. Because what are we gonna do? We're gonna come back and do this again 4 years from now when it's a new board and they wanna hire their son? That's the issue. You're taking away the teeth. I understand what you point out, okay? But the new rule, the way it is written, makes us all uncomfortable. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else, Sonia? See me stand up 5 times.
I put that in standing up a second.
Hello, my name is Sonia Hennessy. I've been a resident for Highland Mills for 18 years. I know a lot of people don't know me. I don't know a lot of people. I'm not politically, I don't get into anything. I go home, I mind my business, and I do my job. I am a retired police officer. I served 21 years. I took the job at the animal shelter because they needed the help. They needed it. I started in April, and April till now is when we're starting to get on our feet. We have tons of injured, sick. People see the name animal control officer and they think, wow, I want that job. They don't really understand what it entails. It is a very strenuous job, and I'm retired. I took it because I wanted to make a difference, okay? Fisher is passionate, he is professional, he is dedicated, and I didn't know him. I just knew him as a young man who wanted the opportunity to have this job. That's all I knew. Everybody needs training. When you become an officer, you need training. When you become a doctor, you need training. When you become a nurse, you need training. I took the head of the department over in May, the end of May, because we were transitioning. There was no one that wanted the job. Nobody wanted to do the paperwork. And believe me, I heard Pam was absolutely amazing. But it's different now. It is different. You need policies, you need procedures, you need structure. I mean, these animals count on us. And if there's nobody that's going to do that for them, and just because he is a family member, he can't get the job, I get it. But don't you want your children and your children's children to have that opportunity if they have the experience and the training and the dedication for the job? I don't play favoritisms. I don't really care. I go to work, and if something needs to be done and it's not done the right way, I will say something. We have 3 applications. 3. I'm gonna meet with all of them, and I'm gonna try to pick the right person for the job, for the part-time job. As for volunteers, we were in a transitional period. We couldn't have volunteers because there was nobody to watch them. There was issues with the shelter. Now I have people with special needs come in. They help with to play and get the animals, cats adopted and adapted to people's touch. I have high school students that are doing volunteer time so that they can graduate with volunteer, and a volunteer diploma. I've had numerous people come in and put applications in. I can only be in one spot. I'm very thinned out. I took this job to enjoy my retirement. But I have a passion for it, and I feel very, very, I'm saddened that people would not be on our side to get this shelter back and running, and the animals are the most concerned. They don't have a voice. And it's a lot of work. It is a lot of work. You get called out, you get called out for dogs hit by car, cats hit by car. We got medical treatments. I go into the shelter on my own time to give the animals their medication. Fisher goes in on his own time to give the medication to the animals. We bottle feed babies. We take them home. We take baby cats home. And this is because what we enjoy. And we just hired a full-time gentleman who is an asset to the shelter, but we need more. We need more. It is very, very important. So I understand everybody's concern about this law, but think about it in the future. You know, you think about it, the future. You know, you're gonna have kids, you're gonna have grandkids, you're gonna have people in the town of Woodbury, and maybe their kids will have, you know, jobs. And like the gentleman said, you're not gonna hire the right person for the job. We had 2 resignations, part-timers, because it conflicted with what they want to do in the future. And listen, they need to go to school. If school education is what you want, that is important. But we can't keep hiring part-timers, somebody who doesn't want the job, to stay for a couple of months and then leave. We need somebody who's passionate, dedicated, a good worker, professional, and has a heart. Whether he's somebody's kid or somebody's grandson, the right person should have the job. Thank you.
Thanks, Sonia.
Sorry, I didn't even know if it was on. I talk loud. I'm Spanish, so.
We heard you.
Can I say something?
There you go.
So, scenario, so today, if this, currently, Fisher can't be hired full-time. Tomorrow, Kate decides to resign. And then, so Fisher can be hired tomorrow? Okay. So what's the difference? Because she's not an elected official anymore?
Since she doesn't.
So, does that change Fisher's qualifications?
No, but he didn't have qualifications when he came on board, did he?
He does now.
Did he? But as a part-timer, right, as a part-timer, the way the
But he
law.
does now. But he does now. So
Are you gonna take a part-time?
It's not gonna change.
All right, we're not going
Yes.
around and around.
Yeah, it's
Enough.
not, and it's also, let's be clear, there's no employment decision on the floor for tonight.
Right.
It's simply the bill. I know it's been a long night, I know there's other issues underlying this, but if we can keep it to the bill, please, that would be helpful for everyone. Thank you.
Susan O'Connell, a longtime Mylan Mills resident.
Can you just spell your last name, I'm sorry?
Sure. MCCONNELL. I originally grew up in South Blooming Grove, from the area, 45 years. Madam Supervisor, I'm sorry that your son is caught in the middle. I'm sure he is a great kid. As Sonia has said, he's a great employee. But you are the top of our town. The ethics flows from you. So sadly, a law was broken. We cannot just adjust a law because it fits what we want. Okay.
Just to be 1,000% clear, there's been no laws that have been broken.
I'm so sorry, sir.
Okay,
A law was not broken.
correct.
A code of ethics was identified as being Compromise, thank you.
No, there's been
Okay.
nothing under the
Sir,
current
I'm sorry,
code.
tell me the correct word I should say.
Nothing untoward has happened.
Okay,
There's been no illegal things, no code has been violated, there's not a glitch at all. Everything has been completely copacetic.
hired full-time.
He would like to be hired, which would be a violation.
Actually, he doesn't want to be hired full-time because of all the negative stuff that's being said in general about the shelter.
how many
So to
times,
find applicants that actually want to take this job, no one wants to deal with the BS that everyone says on Facebook.
okay, I'm not listening to Facebook. What I'm looking at is our town. I'm not worried about the animal shelter. I'm worried bigger. Bigger, because we start with the animal shelter. What's next? Because once you rewrite this, the nepotism can go in place for every other department and area within our town. That's my concern. It's already there.
It's not that.
My concern is, I am looking where I grew up. I am watching those politics. I don't want that here. And I believe that the 5 of you up there don't either. You guys are for Woodbury. You support everything within Woodbury. But going to the law and trying to change something, we have to look at why are we making that change? And is that change bigger picture? How does that affect our town? Not just Fisher. I'm sorry that a kid is being dragged into this because it's not his fault. And he is a good employee. And we all want that for our kids. But we have to look bigger. How does adjusting this? And sir, councilman, you're very proud of what you wrote, and you should be. And you wrote it.
No.
He's a
I'm not a councilman. Number one.
State council.
He's not a councilman.
You wrote it based off what they asked you, because that's your area of expertise, not theirs. All we're saying to you is, you guys have pushed this vote off how many times now? Is this the first time it's come up?
No.
Second. Okay.
Well, it's the first time
Are
this
you
bill, to
five
be
of
clear,
you-
first time this bill has come up.
Are the 5 of you prepared to vote on what's in front of you now?
Yes.
Or do you
Yeah.
feel that it should be pushed off and given the town?
Same stuff is just gonna continue.
And do you feel that you heard your constituents?
Yep.
I do.
And you feel you will be voting how your constituents?
It's not just the people in this room.
I
We're talking
understand.
to a lot
I
of people in
understand.
the town.
Correct.
It's a lot more.
And
This room does not fit all of us, 100%, I get that.
most people too that I wouldn't say agree or don't have a qualm with that particular thing coming up won't come to this meeting to say yes, I have no problem with that.
Right.
9 times out of 10 the people that don't agree with the bill will come to the room, and I applaud all of you for coming and speaking your piece. That is what is intended for these meetings. I'm sorry.
Absolutely. And
Now
to
you
be
can hear.
clear, I have nothing against your son.
Well,
I have nothing against.
I would just like to add something because I've been very publicly clear. I personally don't think Fisher should be a full-time employee, and I've made that very clear to the whole board. Everybody that's asked me, I do not believe you should. I believe that is a nepotism nightmare.
Yes.
Do I think that this language strengthens our nepotism law? Absolutely. It says no. It says will not. Before there's no enforcement on it. What do you do? It happens. What do you do? Fight. Most of this is all union. They're gonna get a lawyer and they're gonna say, what are you gonna do? It happened. I'm now an employee of you. There's nothing you can do. This says it will not happen. So for any future thought that Kate's son getting hired, I have zero intention of voting yes for that. I do not think it should happen. But I think this whole law should be changed as it is now.
As I think many of us do.
And I was the one that tabled it last time. I totally agree that it's needed.
I don't think we're at the final draft. I don't think we're at the final draft. I think there's more that can be done and that your constituents would like you to do. But thank you for listening to me. And no, Teresa, this has nothing to do with Facebook.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
I feel bad even standing up, it's been a long day. I'm gonna keep it very short. I don't know legally, if it's will versus shall, control find, replace shall with will or shall, bill done. But what it comes down to is this, the controller generated boilerplate language. That's great, that's a starting point, but that might not be right for Woodbury. And if you told me all you did is grab the boilerplate, give it to the board and take their input, come on, man, that's the bare minimum.
That's not what I did. We started the hearing by saying that's not what I did.
Okay, I retract that statement, then my bad. I don't wanna get back into, what it comes down to is, again, we gotta make sure whatever is, that the language is right for Woodbury, and Woodbury specifically, and I don't feel that the community has had the opportunity to fully review the language in front of them, for reasons stated earlier. Thank you for your service, and I'm done, I think.
I just want one recommendation. Can I just say, when I was working on the pool, I went through way more longer than you, so I'm just gonna say I'm taking my part.
How about the beaver?
The beaver, attack a beaver. I was on the news saying the beaver is fine, right? So can I just say this? From what I'm hearing, I know that I used to like getting a red line document. The red line documents would basically say what they're taking out and what they're adding in and what they're replacing. My recommendation would be, if the board feels confident behind it, but the constituents still question it, maybe doing a red line document which would show where the changes were made, because I know that's pretty simple to do. And then that would allow the community a little time to just review it. And if at the end of the day, what's being changed is not changing the weight of what we're saying, then I think it would be a moot point for the board or the constituents. But I know that when you're taking two documents and you're going back and forth, it's a lot harder to do it than when you have a red line document that just shows when everything's added, subtracted. It makes it a lot easier to read the information, to read the language, and to say, okay, this is basically the same thing, different words, but we're doing the same thing. So my recommendation, because this meeting will continue to go, you'll continue to get a lot of pushback, and the thing is this, right, this particular situation that you're ready to vote on, although you may feel like there's a lot of people that in the community support it, all you need is a group of people, and I'm telling from experience, a group of people who are going to feel they don't trust you, and you're going to, and fire's gonna burn. And if that's okay with you, that's fine. But you'll lose the trust of people, and once you do that, it's only a matter of time, right? So my recommendation is this: if you feel firm about it, and you have people, when we talked about the pool, and I only bring it back to share my experiences, not to hurt or to, but when we talked about the pool, we went all the way to a referendum. Remember Desiree and Joey? And no one wanted that. But I pushed for it because a group of people like this was in front of me saying, I don't remember, remember Sandy? A group of people like this were in front of me saying, I don't agree with the pool. I didn't worry about who was out there. I worried about who was in front of me. And we pushed for I petitioned for us to vote. And guess what? The community spoke, and the community has a beautiful pool behind that. And that's what you're here for. You're not here for, well, my friends say they support it. You're here for people who say, I don't feel comfortable. You're here for all of us, not for the people who support you only. So my recommendation, again, if you feel strongly about it, then that's a good sign. Tim voiced his opinion about something that I think speaks to what people are saying here, and it's not illegal to hire someone part-time, which I think the issue is just the full-time, right? So if that's where we're at, I would petition the board to consider a red line document so people can read it,
and see if there's any changes that they feel uncomfortable, and then that would give an opportunity for them to appeal it to the board or not, you know. So just my opinion on it, but again, thank you.
The only issue with that is that the code is rewritten from scratch, it's structured very differently, it's not a one-to-one thing. It's not like I took the old document and edited it. So a red line would be a hot mess, because it wouldn't really, just not one-to-one.
I have a question. My question is, does Fisher answer to you or does he answer to the police department?
He answers to
Sonia.
Sonia.
He answers to Sonia and Sonia answers to the police department,
No.
right?
Nope.
Nope, I answer to myself.
Okay, so how is it she doesn't supervise her son? I am a manager, I get supervised by my manager, who gets supervised by another manager. If Fisher's not being supervised by his mom, where's the nepotism? He's being supervised by Sonia. Sonia then has to answer, correct? Why is this an issue?
Fisher's not an issue. You're missing the whole
I'm for, we are knocking our children,
Please let us speak.
We're knocking our children.
There's
He-
more departments.
Please let us
now.
speak.
He is a dedicated person. I'm trying to say is that he doesn't answer to her. When he has to when he's our mother. But she's not his boss, right? Sonia is his boss. Sonia is the one he has to answer. He makes a mistake, he has to talk to Sonia. He doesn't show up, he has to answer to Sonia. Sonia has to answer to somebody else because of course we have someone above us. Where is it that we stop and say, let's give someone an opportunity, someone who is wanting 100% to be where he is. That's all I wanted to say. His mother is not his boss.
Desiree Potman, Woodbury resident, 50 years.
50.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. The history of the ethics law. No, I'm joking. A couple of things I want to clarify that were said this evening that I don't agree with as a department head and serving as a town clerk for 27 years. How would we know if we hired somebody? What penalties would there be? You would know. I told Kate, I told Eileen, who told Kate, okay? That's what you have a town clerk for, and a town attorney, and your payroll department. They should know when it's, because you guys make the appointments. You guys decide every person who gets hired by this government, with the exception of deputies of elected officials, which there used to be more, now there's just 2, mine and Kate's. So before you make that appointment, you should know whether or not that individual could be hired. Point 1. Point 2. 90% of our jobs are civil service. So you have to take a test anyway to get the job. Not for animal control, but this law's not about just animal control. Okay? 2, Sonia, I know you think you report to nobody, but you do. You're a department head. The only department head that does not report to anybody is an elected official, and they report to the public.
Right.
So you do technically report to the supervisor, however, I would hope the attorney would tell the supervisor when it comes to ACO, if an individual were to be hired that's a relative, perhaps the deputy supervisor would then step in, because that would be the point of the deputy supervisor. Right? Oh yeah, public hearings. I've been through my share of public hearings. The point of a public hearing is for the public to come and tell the board their opinions. And yes, you're right. People are only gonna show up if they have something negative to say. However, that's what written comment periods are for. Because I can tell you, I have date stamps, the same exact letter signed by hundreds of people, called grassroots campaigns. Someone who was dear to Woodbury, and Sandy will tell you, whose name just freaking left, Roxanne Donnery, was huge on grassroots campaigns. If there is enough people in this community that are in favor of this law, one person just has to write a 2-line document. I am in favor of local law, introductory local law 3, sign it, send it to the clerk, state stamp it, I can give you a stack of paper. I've had it for many a public hearing in the past, the exact, sometimes it's a postcard, sometimes it's a letter, sometimes it's an email, word for word. So, the whole point of a public hearing is for you five to listen to the comments being made at said public hearing, which gets put into the record of the minutes, and you make a decision based on that. So if you have heard many people tell you that they're in favor of this, close the public hearing, set a written comment period. At the next meeting, the town clerk or deputy town clerk, whomever is here to do the minutes, can say, we received 482 letters signed by 482 residents that are in favor of this, and 400 that were not, or whatever the case may be. But that's the point of having a public hearing, to entertain comments of the public to make that decision. If you came into this room with a decision of this law in your head already prior to this public hearing, then what was the point of holding it? As far as I'm in favor of it or not, I don't really care one way or the other. I think whoever the best person for the job should be hired. But I can say that because that law was written because of me, so, there you go.
Thanks, Des.
Yep, you did.
There's one thing that keeps popping in my head as this keeps going around and around, and the best thing that pops in, and I won't use a specific one, but let's take a major municipality like a police department, right? Massive, like a metropolitan. There are plenty of brothers and sisters that work there, as long as their father, cousin, brother, uncle doesn't supervise them.
Exactly.
Or hire. I mean, how often you hear generations of police officers, as long as their father wasn't their sergeant, there wasn't a problem. I mean, if they're the right person for the job, and like I said, in this case, so close to home, the way the whole thing happened, I don't believe that Fisher should be full-time. But that's not to say in another department that this shouldn't happen if that's the right person. I think this law strengthens how much, and Jackie, you said before, the board, we supervise department heads. Department heads supervise their employees. You're coming to me as a department head and saying, I think Joe Smith is the best person that we interviewed. Home run, let's hire him. I'm not involved in the hiring. That could be my cousin, but you interviewed him, you know? What's the difference if that's my friend? You know, the whole nepotism thing can be said over and over.
Well, I just wanna say something really quick.
If my best friend applied for the job, what's the difference if, you know, the buddy thing, the good old boy system has been around, you know.
But it's not.
Wait, no, real quick. So I just wanna say, so there were other applicants when Fisher applied. There were other applicants. We were told there weren't. That's the problem. This is the problem that we're discussing. We were told there weren't any other applicants.
Who told you that?
You guys said there were no other applicants.
No, not until the time when Sonia went to get hired. My son was hired in December when Tommy was still
When
the
he was still the
supervisor.
supervisor.
Yes, and it was voted on in January. And Fisher and Gavin were both hired as part-timers. Sam was working there, JT from the fire department was working there, and someone else was working there. They had a full staff, so 2 people were hired. I have no idea what that looked like I said, when Lieutenant Phillips did the interviews and stuff like that. Then when I think it was Sam left, JT, whatever, left, and I don't remember who the other person was, left. Fisher was the only person working in that animal shelter, the only person, everybody else had left. Then they put in applications, that's when Sonia put in an application, that's when Natasha, that's when we got other applications. But at the first time, when they first hired back in January, it was only Fisher and Gavin, and both of them got hired.
Can we foil that information? Another thing, can we also foil, if there was a write-in period, can we also foil everyone that wrote in favor of?
Yes.
That's right? Yeah?
I mean, you can only foil Thanks, The history of the phone. You can only foil documents, records that exist. So, applications contain a lot of confidential personal information. So unless whoever was doing the interviewing process at the time maintained a list of interviews and times and when they were held, then that document would be foiled. if they did not, it's gonna be really difficult to be able to give you something that doesn't exist, and I can't give you applications, because it has a lot of stuff. Okay, that was the first thing I asked. The second thing you asked for were if any written comments come in. Yes, written comments, not only, if they're for a public hearing, not only do they come in, but they also are made part of the record. So I think in the last public hearing on the first version of this law, there was a written comment by Mr. Pastel. I believe I not read it verbatim, because if someone sends a 400-page document, we'll be here till, oh, it's not right. But I summarized said comments, and they're made available for the record, and they're held in my office for 6 years pursuant to the detention period. Okay, did that answer most of your questions? Okay, I'm going back.
And one more, and then I'll sit down. Just
Me
one
or-
more. No, them.
Okay, good.
Do you guys approve raises and, or like does the department head come before you and ask for raises and
Of their employees.
Of their employees and such? Anything, yes? Okay.
And they're in the union.
As part of the union, yeah, if they're in the union and you serve a certain amount, I don't know the exact languages, but in the union contract, as with many union contracts that I'm familiar with, usually there's some sort of promotion procedure. Maybe you start off as a laborer, eventually become a machine equipment operator to foreman, you know, whatever it may be. Usually there's some sort of progression, like with the state.
And you guys decide that progression?
Off criteria, of course.
You guys decide that progression?
No, that's all negotiated language within the contract.
So it's not like, let's just say I worked for the Parks Department. And Joey said, I don't want you to be a gatekeeper anymore, I want you to be the director. Would that be, like, would
That
that
would
go
be a
before you?
grievance situation.
No, I'm just saying, in general, like, would that, like, would he be able to give me a promotion and then come before you?
No.
No? Okay.
What would he do?
Believe me, I'm dealing with arbitration right now.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I believe any employee, anybody under the town board must be approved, when we have our budget meetings, right, for
Talking about
employees,
hiring or salaries?
salaries.
Or promotion.
Promotion, salary, employees or not,
I don't have my copy of the
non-union,
contract.
Non-union. So your summer help is done by Joseph and the Parks Commission, I believe, not town board, okay? The union employees, which is almost everybody with the exception of the two people I have in my office, Joey, Liz isn't union, right? She is union? Okay. So the two people in my office, I think there's two girls in the court who are in the union, the assessor's not union, and that's it for town employees. So when I want to raise for the people in my office, I do it at budget time. Same with the elected officials is at budget time. There have been some instances where changes have been made. Like I think you're getting $25 extra a day to be department head. I don't know if that's in the union or not. I don't know when that decision was made. I know some department heads get extra money for that. I don't know how that's been decided. But most things are done at budget time.
But to the board.
The whole board votes on the budget. So,
And most things,
As well as the contracts.
yeah, the contract.
as well as, right, usually two board members negotiate a contract and then the entire board votes on said contract. And all the budget hearings are public, even the budget work sessions, which I'm guessing will be held sometime next month, right?
And just for example, like the police department that we just did, you know, that's 5 years of, we know that they're getting paid.
And it's
so,
formal.
You know, so we're not voting on their pay, cause we're talking about the law here, this isn't, you know, free for all. Nepotism. We don't set their salary. 98% of the town employees, the union set their salary,
Yeah.
the contract set their salary. We don't vote to give you a raise. The contract got negotiated.
It negotiates.
And then we figured out, not for me and you, for every employee in that union.
But, point of order, cause if I was sitting there, I'd be telling you guys this, it's now 9:30, 2 hours. You need to either continue the hearing, close the hearing, you got other business you gotta get to. And if you, and I, like, you know, I said, maybe written comment if you're not ready to adopt, if you're ready to adopt, that's up to the five.
So we'll move to close the public hearing.
Make the motion.
Great. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we'll move on to the resolution. Nicole, can you please read the resolution?
Again, I apologize for my voice, whereas the public hearing was duly held and all parties in attendance were permitted an opportunity to speak on behalf or in opposition of introductory local law period 2024. And whereas the town board has reviewed the proposed local law, the short environmental assessment prepared in connection therewith, and considered the public comment provided aforesaid public hearings and due deliberation thereon. Now therefore it be hereby resolved, the town board of the town of Woodbury, that one, the proposed local law constitutes an unlisted action pursuant to SECRA. The proposed local law has no significant adverse environmental impacts, and the town board hereby issues a negative declaration thereon. The adoption of the proposed local law is in the best interests of the residents of the town, and the town hereby adopts local law 3 of 2024, entitled Ethics Code of, and the town clerk is hereby directed to enter said law in the minutes of this meeting and in the local law book of the town of Woodbury, and to give due notice of the adoption of the said local law to the Secretary of State as follows. So roll call, Councilmember
You need a
Flory.
motion first. No. Thank you, Nicole. Can I have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution?
Make the motion.
Second. Any discussion? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Roll call, Councilmember Flory.
Aye.
Councilmember Capitano.
No.
Councilmember Longo.
Aye.
Deputy, Supervisor Brandon.
Aye.
Supervisor Shaw.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to public comment on agenda items only. Does anybody have any comments on agenda items only? Now we'll go to administrative business. Acceptance of minutes. Can I have a motion and a second to accept the receipt of the minutes of the town board meeting held on August 15th, 2022?
Make the motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of abstract. Nicole, can you please read the revised abstract number 15 for this meeting?
Revised abstract 15 is the leading voucher 241267, check 29494, which reduces the abstract total to be $481,975.90.
Thank you, Nicole. Can I have a motion and a second to approve the revised abstract 15 as read?
Make the motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Nicole, can you please read abstract number 17 for this meeting?
Abstract 17 containing vouchers 241445 through 241550, totaling $173.73.
Thanks, Nicole. Can I have a motion and a second to approve abstract 17 as read?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Acceptance of resignation of A. Martinez. Can I have a motion and accept a second to accept Angelina Romero Martinez's resignation from part-time ECO position effective September 1st, 2024?
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I just wanna, pipe in on here, cause there's some rumors, and I just wanna get rid of the peanut gallery as part of a couple things. We have the letters from the two people that are resigning, and they're legit reasons. They're resigning because the work hours conflict with school schedule. So I do pay attention to some things that are online, and the rhetoric and the institution of hysteria is basically disgusting, and it disgusts me. So when people move on with their lives, full-time jobs, go to school, that's the reason that sometimes we leave. Not because of certain people. And the narrative is disgusting. I'm done.
Thank you, Brandon. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. We wish Angelina well as she goes off to continue her studies. Next is the acceptance of resignation of B. Francella Can I have a motion and a second to accept Brittany Franchella's resignation as part-time ACO position effective August 26, 2024?
Make the motion.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes. This one was leaving because, let's see, she recently opened up her own business.
From a hair salon.
Yeah, it was not planned, it was unexpected. Unfortunately, this now interferes with her full-time career as a hairdresser. So that's why she's resigning.
So I just wanna say that Brittany was amazing. She came in as a volunteer and started working at the animal shelter on every Sunday and Monday. As we all know, hairstylists don't work on Sundays and Mondays. So she came in as a volunteer. She was helping out every Sunday and Monday with Sonia and stuff like that. We hired her as a part-time person to fill in Sundays and Mondays because a lot of people don't wanna work on Sundays, so she was the perfect person to fill that spot. However, she did open her own salon, her own chair, and, you know, we wish her the most success, you know, in her
Yeah,
future. I mean, she
absolutely.
does my hair, so I really do. I like her. So any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed, and we wish Brittany much success on her personal endeavors. Approval of the budget modifications. Nicole, can you please read the budget modifications submitted for the 2024 budget?
Yes, buildings and grounds and beautification, increasing A 1620-425 landscaping by 18,000, decreasing A 8510.425 grounds and landscaping by 10,000, A 8510.431 holiday decorations maintenance by 3,000, A 8510.445 beautification lease by 5,000, increasing A 1620-405 custodial supplies by 1,000, and decreasing A 1620-462 repairs and materials by 1,000. Then we have one for judgments and claims. We're increasing A 1930.400 judgment and claims by $1,006.60. A 599 appropriated fund balance by $1,006.60. B 1930.400 judgments and claims by $1,056.22. And B 599 appropriated fund balance by $1,056.22.
Thank you, Nicole. Can I have a motion and a second to approve the budget modifications as read? I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Yeah, motion passed. There aren't any items under old business this week, so we'll move on to new business. The authorized grant application, 2024-2025 JCAP. Can I have a motion and a second for the town board to authorize the Justice Court to apply for the Justice Court Assistance Program covering the grant cycle 2024 through 2025 for up to $30,000.
Make the motion.
I'll second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Okay, we get that. Next is a waiver for the garage sale fee. And it's at Lisa Leffelray. It's for Climate Task Force Jump in the Trunk event. The Climate Smart Woodbury Community Task Force will be hosting a Jump in the Trunk mobile yard sale on Saturday, October 19th from 10 a.m. to noon in the parking lot of St. Pat's Church located at 26th Center Street, in Wilson, 1930. Can I have a motion and a second to authorize the town clerk to waive the yard sale permit fees?
Second.
What was the first one? Ready?
Nope.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Authorize the supervisor to sign the IMA with Monroe Woodbury Central School District for the SRO 7/1 to 12/31/25. Can I have a motion and a second to authorize myself to sign the IMA with Monroe Woodbury Central School District for part-time school resource officer, covering the period of July 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2025.
Make the motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Resolution, tax cert settlement, Orange County West LLC. The town board negotiated a tax cert settlement regarding Orange County West LLC. Nicole, can you please read the resolution?
Whereas a challenge having been filed by the property owner below challenging a real property tax assessment on the town's assessment roll with respect to the parcel owned by Orange County West LLC, 215 Route 32 Central Valley, section block and lot 228-5-4 for tax year 2024. And whereas petitioner's court challenge is now pending in the Supreme Court, Orange County, and whereas the town and the property owner have reached a mutually agreeable resolution, Now therefore it be resolved, the special counsel to the town is authorized to execute a settlement on behalf of the town for the assessments no less than the following. The original assessment was $155,200 and the reduced assessment was $106,100.
Thank you, Nicole. Can I have a motion and a second to approve the resolution as read and explained?
Make the motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Authorize the supervisor to sign the agreement with RBT CPA service for 2024. Can I have a motion and a second to authorize myself to sign the agreement with RBT CPA providing accounting and or consulting services to the town through end of the year, December 31st, 2024? Can I have a motion?
Make the motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Public comment. Does anybody from the public have anything they would like to say which is not related to the agenda?
Jimmy Ing Highland Mills, so it was a little while since we had last had a town meeting. The issue was, in between that, I got the letter from Scoofus. Basically, everyone at the town board said they did not reach out to Scoofus for this brilliant plan of his. Brandon and Teresa, we both said you guys were not for it. You guys were willing to listen. Kate, Tim, Sandy, where do you guys stand? Do you think the consolidation of the two boards is a good idea or not?
I think we all answered the last meeting.
No. I'm sorry, then I missed it.
Yeah, we did. We all
Okay.
answered the last
So,
meeting. None of us have seen any legislation, so.
but I'm just, I understand there's no
How do
official
you comment
legislation.
on something that you haven't seen?
But the whole idea of combining the boards, where do you stand?
I feel like our two boards do a great job. We have a lot of employees that work for the town and village. You consolidate and people lose jobs. So I think it's a huge thing for everybody to look into. Again, I'm not gonna make a comment till I see legislation, and we all make a practical decision looking over everything. But again, that's my stance. I think the town and village do a great job. We're working on an IMA right now to try to get everything together to make
No,
sure we
and
continue to do a great job.
I agree with that. As far as, it's wonderful that she's here. South Blooming Grove. We all see what's going on there. I don't care whether you guys get into a fight in the alley between the village and the town. It's our fight. That's my concern. As far as, in all honesty, whatever happened with the code of ethics, whatever. But I do know you guys care for Woodbury. I know you guys cannot handle what is going on in South Blooming Grove. The water trucks, the development. You know, when we get to that stage, trust me, don't worry about the animal shelter. It's you know, there's gonna be more things to worry about. But why can't, he's wasting time by mailing things out.
Jimmy, just to clarify, because this, just to clarify, because this is the second meeting it's got brought up at public comment. And I agree with Kate, I'll never comment on something that I haven't seen, because one, there's no wasted energy, I mean, I don't even know what to talk about. But I was never broached, I can tell you that, by Scoofus or his team or whatever.
Okay.
To get my opinion on that. So, the only 10 people in the world, in the universe, that could make this change happen were never even talked to, apparently. So, why he would mail that out, I couldn't tell you.
And our attorney spoke on that the last
No,
time.
and correct.
To calm fear, so why we're gonna continue to talk about it.
And not only that, but if three of us said no, it's done. If 3 people in the village said no, it's done. We all of us have to agree. That's clearly not gonna happen.
And that's what I'm reaching for. You know what? We kinda got that at the village. I missed it if everyone said it.
You were at the village board meeting
Yes.
when you were asked, right?
Yes.
And what was the overall consensus from the village?
4-1.
Okay, it's 4-1 that they weren't for it.
They're not for it.
Okay, so it's dead in the water.
But for your peace of mind, Jimmy, I haven't seen anything, so I can't.
I know.
It could be the best plan in the world and help all Woodbury, and maybe I would consider it, but
Yeah,
just
I mean, if
for-
they came in and said each person's gonna save $5,000 a year on their taxes, wouldn't it be worth looking at?
looking at, no, I get it, but for me, we're not, it's not as
I'm
straightforward.
just giving out an example.
No, I get
We
it.
would maybe get a
But
pen.
Jimmy, at face value, it doesn't make sense.
Okay,
At face value.
That's what I'm looking
Unless
for,
there's some
and-
great thing, like you said, in that plan, which saves the residents of Zorba around money to consider, but at face value. Because that's all I can take it at, I've seen it. It's been talked to by him or his office,
There's been no
none of us
legislation
have.
proposed at all to us.
But for this man to mail out letters to everybody.
I don't
That
understand why he would
was,
do it, in my opinion. You think you would broach it to us? Show us the,
Yes.
yeah, I would ask the,
Read it in the photo news.
it's not in the photo news.
That's
It's
what
not
it
even on our
says.
desk.
That's what his office
They
says.
given no details in the legislation.
So, yes, I've asked his office.
Gonna be an information session coming up.
At
That's
right
why
now,
they
Jimmy,
said
I
in
believe it's
future.
a force. None of us know.
okay.
So,
But you know, for us to, for our comfort, I would love to, and it was, that statement, we're not interested, go away.
well, just to be clear, I'm interested in any plan that somebody might have to help Woodbury. I'll listen to them. It won't fall on deaf ears. That'd be like telling you, I'm not listening to what you have to say at public comment. I'll listen, but that's not my, so I'm not gonna say yes before I even know what we're talking about.
I think the sad thing is, when people look, they see there's a link in the chain between the town and the village. When people are talking, the town and the village are not getting along, so what are people gonna do? They're gonna cry on that. And that's the most important time when the town and the village need to come together
Correct.
and work and do an
But-
IMA and get agreements
But Kate,
and work
as
together
far
to
as the
show that we
IMA
work
and the
together.
town and the
Just
village, I agree. It would be great if the 10 of you got along. But I don't care if you get along or not. This fight is here. My concern is South Blooming Grove. I watch, I got too much, I don't have enough stuff to do, and I watch those meetings, and it's comical. The stuff that goes on there, it's they don't care. And our concern is at least 5 here, 5 there, you'll fight back and forth. If you're 5 and they take over and you lose the boards and they run everything, we lose the town.
Jimmy, the
That's
only
why
thing
you
on
don't
that
do
plan,
But again, if everybody keeps going after the good people that wanna run and keep attacking them, you're not gonna get the good people that wanna run. So, keep that in mind too.
and Jimmy,
You have people, and, Sandy's been doing this for years, and we dragged her into it to fill my spot. Brandon has volunteered for years, Teresa and I did the We Are Woodbury, you have a volunteer fireman and a veteran here. We're all young and we all have young kids, and we all care about this community. You have a board like this, but when all these things keep going on and happening, the good people aren't gonna wanna do it anymore.
But the attacks aren't on this board running. Sandy, anyone attacking you
Attacking me?
about you running? No one else is running on this board, right? But there's no attacks. I know where the attacks are
Well,
going.
I shouldn't say that.
I'm like, what
There's
is
a
it?
certain
What?
person who's
Chucklehead.
blogger, I guess, who
Sandy,
likes
you're
to
gonna be
take
put
his
in the
place
box.
here and there, but
But not enough.
Jimmy, I don't think, if the only solution for that legislation, because I haven't seen it, we're going off face value, like I said,
Mhm.
is to bring it from 10 people to 5, all 5 of us can hate each other. The elections are split up, we all get voted in different years, we might be Republican, Democrat, we might hate each other on a personal level. We can be fighting ourselves. We can be fighting ourselves. We don't need 10 people to knock it off, all 5 of us couldn't get along,
if you wanna look something up, Jimmy, Google Pie in the Sky and my name in the Times Herald Record, and you will find from 2009, there was a debate when I ran for the village, and I ran
Ooh, it's sorry.
I ran with Stephanie Bear.
Okay, I got that.
I ran with the first mayor, Stephanie Berrien Weeks, and Fred Linlaw. And Mr. Queenan, Mr. Flood, and Mr. Egan with Nancy Calhoun, who was the Republican assemblywoman at the time, wanted to merge the town and the village. And the village was only 3 years old at that point. And that's what they ran on. And there was a public debate, and I said it was a pie in the sky idea. The savings to merge at that time would be about 106,000 or 160,000, I don't recall. But spread out over the population, it was peanuts. And I said it was a pie in the sky idea. I said it then, I'll say it again, but if you wanna Google me, because everybody's about Googling and facts, Pie in the Sky Idea, my name, Times Herald Record.
I will look it up, thank you.
Can you say one thing? Oh, Beverly, go, you go.
It's, I don't think the concern, Beverly, so better.
I gotta teach in the morning.
I think the concern is the boards staying separate, joining. According to Scofus's statement on the news a few weeks ago, he's pretty, sounds like he was sure that the Acres area will merge with the Palm, and that he's concerned that they will make a bid for Woodbury.
Ace Farms.
So,
Are you talking about Ace Farm?
yeah,
Yes.
so that whole development, he's right there. I don't remember if it's going to or they're planning to merge. And that his concern is that they will make a bid for Woodbury. And he sort of threw in that the two boards should get their act together, or it sounded more like he was stoking the fire.
Wouldn't it be easier though to take over 5 seats than 10?
Exactly, what I said last
Well, he discussed annexation,
So-
Annexation.
annexation.
That they'll make a bid for Woodbury, and it was just chilling.
Thank you, Beverly.
Thank you.
So, I just wanted to comment, and because I'm thinking about this conversation, and urbanization is here. Urbanization is in Woodbury as we speak. You drive along 105, you drive on 17, we know urbanization and overdevelopment is here. It's not in the ether, it's not an idea, it's not a theory, it's here. So, I was just thinking about our comprehensive plan. I know it's on the website, and I think the last time it was reviewed was in 2019, was it 2019?
That's the village.
That was the village.
Yeah, we don't, the village
Do
has
you
a
guys have
comprehensive
any
plan.
input for, in, as it relates to the comprehensive plan? Okay, alright, so then this is irrelevant and moot, but, at the end of the day, when you hear our concerns, we know it's because there are certain projects that are pending. There is definitely a growing trend of development around us. We see things changing rapidly, and there's somewhat of a pressure. And people are gonna start coming out because it's in your face now. So it's in our faces. But that's all I want to say. It's been a long night, and I hope you all have a good one.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Any other comments? Like to ask? Okay.
Come on, someone else wants to talk.
Okay, board member, department head, Joey, do you have anything to say?
Of course he does.
Hey, what?
Joey, you're wearing my favorite shade of blue.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, Joey.
Hold on. I'll make it short because I know everybody wants to know. Just want to let you know, our season is over. The pond and the reservoir, pool, whatever you guys want to call it, everything's closing up. This Saturday, in case anybody in the audience wants to come and help us at 8 o'clock, we're putting a cover on the pool. We can use all hands on deck if anybody's available. There's a big project to do that. It's very heavy. I just want to thank everybody that's involved, because if I start naming names, I'm going to forget somebody. So I just want whoever was involved in this season to make it the way it was. It's a whole team effort, and I want to thank everybody. I want to give special thanks to a volunteer that doesn't get paid, Michelle Valenti, who does our Facebook page. She takes care of the gatekeepers, she schedules them, they call her, I can't make it, she puts somebody else, she helps me out tremendously. So I just want to give her a shout out, because she doesn't, she doesn't volunteer.
Definitely deserves it.
Yeah, she does.
So that's all done. We have a lot of projects coming up. We have the courthouse to do. We have a lot of landscaping to do, from the courthouse. We have over by the library, that corner piece is gonna be done. Brickley Field, we just looked at that today. We just put a letter to the to the village to waive the fees so we can start bringing the dirt in and get that start to go. So we got some projects going on, so you see the guys, you know, we do have stuff going on. And that's about it. And so like I said, we put everything together, putting everything away, and then we'll start doing our projects for this fall. Any questions? I don't know if that's good.
Thank you, Joey.
Thanks, Joey.
Joey, thank you for a great season with everything, the lifeguards, with the camp, everything. You are like literally the heart and soul of this town.
And we
Stop.
especially,
Everything you've been into.
we especially all love
doesn't
the
wanna cry.
I don't wanna cry. I'm not getting up anymore. Thank you.
All right. Does our attorney have anything to say?
I've said enough.
Oh, that's right. I forgot you're sitting back there.
Really? I feel like my name's been said almost enough.
Well, everybody's been moving in and out, so I haven't seen.
Just go Packers.
No.
Playing my husband's team
Strike
tomorrow
that
night. That's it.
Councilmember Clory.
All right, as always, like to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I just want to address something that was said during the public hearing about our previous council and a little bit of attack on our current council. The previous council was dismissed for private reasons. But I can tell you it had nothing to do with conflict, and I didn't want that rumor to get any traction because it's disgusting again. It hurts my ears when I hear untruths, and unfortunately, that came out. I couldn't be happier with the firm that we have. They were selected from multiple applicants, and they do a great job. And they are definitely not a kick the can down the road kind of law firm. We get things done. Give you a small example. When the polar plunge, which I'll get to in a minute, came to Orange County at the res, the initial site visit took place in April. Unfortunately, everything was not approved until the end of September. Because for one reason or another, it just kept getting kicked down the can, kicking the can, kicking the can. We don't want to do that. We want to get stuff done. I'm not going to elaborate on that. It's simple. They get stuff done. And I'm not going to trash anyone else. I'm above that. And I'll leave it at that as far as that's concerned. But I really didn't want that getting any traction with that disgusting rumor. I think if you're going to say something, you should at least know the facts. Speaking of which, as a reminder, the polar plunge is Saturday, November 9th. We encourage anyone to participate, whether it's plunging, creating a team, or sponsoring. November 9th at the res. It's the Special Olympics polar plunge for Orange County. Schools are opening. We have a Cool School Challenge. We're reaching out to as many schools in Orange County as possible. Like last year we had Chester, Minnesink. I know there was a couple more, but not many. So because we have more time this year, we're hoping to get a lot more teams together. All the money goes to the athletes who are able to participate in the Special Olympics with zero cost to their family. Nothing.
And it'll be colder this year.
It'll be a little bit colder, but I'm still going in the water. Also, the Climate Smart Repair Cafe is this Saturday at Village Hall from 10 to 2. And they are also hosting a Woodbury community cleanup on Saturday, September 21st from 9 to 12, which is sponsored by the Woodbury Climate Smart Community Task Force as well as the Highway Department. So if you got some free volunteer time, come on out and help. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. I was hoping you would just go. Okay, now that the older kids are back in school, I just have a couple of happenings at the Ida Cornell branch of the Woodbury Public Library for the preschoolers. Tomorrow, Friday, September 6th, begins fall preschooler story time from 10:30 to 11:15, and that will continue every Friday through November 22nd. Preschoolers will explore fall themes through story, songs, and movement. And the second thing is beginning Monday, September 9th, from 11 to noon, and continuing each Monday through October 14th, Woodbury Public Library is offering sensory playtime. Expand your child's developing mind with stimulating sensory experiences. And finally, for all residents, tomorrow, September 6th, is National Read a Book Day. So just one more reason to visit either branch of our Woodbury Public Library. And thank you everybody for coming out and for all your input.
Councilmember Longo, sorry, Sam.
That's okay.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming out. It's always great having a big turnout, hearing what the community has to say. Hope everyone had a good summer and that anyone with children or grandchildren, that their kids have a great school year. Just a reminder for everyone to slow down, especially when buses are coming. I've seen some people just fly by and an accident, waiting to happen. The pool and the res and the whole Parks and Rec department, everyone that was involved did an awesome job this year, this season. And kind of sad that it's gonna close, cause I do like going, even though I have my own pool, I do like the slides. And for anyone that has a dog, you need to have a dog license, so make sure. What?
She said thank you.
Oh.
For her squeaky voice.
So make sure you have a dog license or to make sure that it's current, we got rabies shots. We do have a cute dog named Toasty who's been at the shelter since March and she really needs a home. Yeah, she's a really cute girl. And lots of cats and kittens. So if you know someone that's looking or you wanna get a cat, we have plenty.
Teresa, where the puppies go?
Oh, we do have another dog, Max. He's only there for a couple weeks though, but he needs to go home too. And that's it. Hope everyone has a good rest of the night.
Thank you, Teresa. Deputy Supervisor Finnegan.
I don't have a lot to say. I think everything's been said twice, maybe 3 times tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you all for coming out. That's one of the most important things to do about the community, right? Especially local politics. Important to voice heard. The only other thing I have is September 11th at the Highland Mills Firehouse. There'll be a memorial service at 7 p.m. Everyone's welcome to attend and encouraged.
Deputy Supervisor. Deputy Town.
She gave you an
Sorry, I'm tired. It was really
Tim's job.
No, I have nothing to say.
You want the title? Alright, and so just like Tim had announced, the 9/11 ceremony
I think this was something for somebody else.
You did.
Never have.
Like he said, it was at the firehouse at 7 p.m. And I think it's really important. I've seen it kind of dwindle down on like the people that have showed up, and it's upsetting. We also, I'm sure every single person here would recite exactly where they were at that time when they found out what happened. And the thing that made us all so incredible that day was how we came together, like through a tragedy, And for me, waking up that morning, I called all my friends that lived in the city and didn't even think about my brother who was in the police department. I thought, he's in the Bronx, there's no way he'd be there. And I went on with my day until my sister-in-law called me and told me she thought he was gone because he ran into the building when it came down. Thank God his chief, captain, whatever, told them to move the cars so the fire trucks could go in. And when he moved the car and he was heading in, the building started to come down. And we always had this joke where I used to call him Forrest Gump because he's 6'5" and the way he ran. And so when he used to run, I used to say, "Run, Forrest, run," And he said to me, when that building went down, he goes, "I ran," and like we still have that joke, but it was a horrible time. It was like 2 days before I knew he was okay, and like I said, we all have our memories of that day, and even though the most tragic time, like I said, we all came together. And we have to remember that as a town, a community, a state. New York was never as strong as it was on 9/11, and our chief, our lieutenant here, they were both down there, they both have to go and get tested all the time. We have many people in the ambulance, the fire department that were down there that, lost people here. And I think it's extremely important to come out and honor and remember. It's a day we should never forget, our children should never forget. We should always remember. And then with that, we also have the suicide walk. Brandon, that's September 22nd, correct?
Yep, Sunday.
Yeah, so September 22nd is a suicide walk we do up at the res, and it also is a really great thing. There's teams, you know, that people link up and stuff to support, you know, those who have passed, and, you know, just bring information to those who suffer from depression, families that have lost somebody. And,
It's, just if anyone wants to Google it, it's called the Out of the Darkness,
yes.
okay, suicide prevention walk, and it takes place at the res on Sunday.
And they have a beautiful quilt that they put up every year.
9 a.m.
That has the stories
Sunday
of
when?
all those
This Sunday?
22nd.
that passed due to
22nd.
suicide.
And they have
That's a
different,
walk?
like, they have
That's a walk?
necklaces
Yeah,
that
we're in the
have
res.
different
You earn money?
reasons why people.
Donate money?
Different people like suicide and things like that you can wear in honor of somebody who you might have lost to suicide and things. And like I said, it's a great day. Some people wear shirts with the person's name on it, and, you know, it's just a way to come out for your community. We have a lot of
And
people
raise
here in
money.
this community who have lost,
Suicide prevention.
you know, family members, and I just love, you know, being out there and letting everybody in the community know that we know, you know, how much, you know, depression and things like that affect us all. So, and with that, I need to authorize the town board to enter into an executive session, so we get to stay and you guys gotta go.
We'll be back out to close the
Yeah,
meeting.
we'll be out to close the meeting, so if you wanna say anything for us. You need a motion, Tim?
Yeah.
Second.
Second?